Looking for local news on Gulf Coast ghouls, ookie dookie spooky happenings.
To all our paranoid freaks and geeks out there, we've got the stuff for you.
Welcome to Cryptid TV, the one-stop shop for all your Panama City cryptic sightings, anomalies, and pocket dimensions.
My name's Julie, and I've got my right-hand man, Luke, with me. At the end of our show, we'll have an exclusive interview with a special guest, so stay tuned. But for now, let's begin with a vocabulary review for all the newbies watching. Take it away, Luke.
The first important word of the day is cryptid. Cryptids are animals and or monsters that people claim are real, but for the most part haven't been proved to be true.
If you've heard of Bigfoot, Mothman, or El Chupacabra, you should have a pretty good understanding of what a cryptid is.
Yep, those are the most well-known variety of cryptids, but not all of them are mega famous or dangerous. Some of them are just cute little harmless fellas, not all of them, some of them, but beware of the fact.
Let's move on to anomalies. They are abnormalities or just little nuggets of weirdness. An example, being a baby born with two heads or getting no bacon on your Travie Patty. Pretty straight to the point definition.
Now our last word is more of a short phrase and is more of the intriguing subjects of today's pocket dimensions. They are dimensions too small or too easily reachable to be considered their own separate entity. More or less, they're extra pocket of space added onto our own dimension.
I know it can be a bit overwhelming at first, but the further you dive deep, the more you'll understand. Now that we've got the basics covered, let's move on to the main course of today.
The first sighting of the Stairwell Stinker was on September 10th, 2020. Students Graceland Wright and Austin Griggs were busy filming a video project on campus. They were in the third floor of the ATC building where they decided to pack it up and go home. The elevator they had used to the third floor, however, was out of order for some curious reason. They brushed it off and took the stairs instead.
They safely made it down the third flight and the second flight. But when heading towards the last flight, a pungent rank hit them in the face. Austin, the bravest one in the group, went forwards and saw an unwashed, hunchback man in a target uniform facing away from the group. According to their account and the picture, you could see the other side of the wall through him.
The haunting figure freaked them out so much to the point that they ran all the way back up to the third floor, where the elevator was. The doors were already open, but the students were so spooked out of their minds, they didn't question why the elevator wasn't working now.
When the next day came, they were able to get in contact with building security. Watching back in the cameras, the security guard saw the students, but no hunchback man in a target uniform. The only thing that appeared in the footage were a pair of muddy footprints. These footprints and this picture are the only physical pieces of evidence of the Stairwell Stinker.
From that day forwards, more and more students and staff have come forward with their own account of the Stairwell Stinker. Professor William Covington of the Digital Media Department came to us with his own personal account with the Stinker.
It was a breezy and quiet October night when Covington was in his office working late. While knees-deep in paperwork, he became particularly parched. However, this gallon jug of lemon water seemed to be misplaced. Despite how gargantuan this jug was, it was nowhere to be found. Thinking he may have left it in an upstairs classroom, he went to take the elevator to the second floor.
The doors opened, but strangely enough, none of the buttons worked. There were a weird fourth floor button he had never seen before. Didn't bother to click it. He would have taken the set of stairs right across from the elevator, but the janitor was in the midst of mopping them. Not wanting to bother the janitor and potentially ruin his work, he opted to use the stairwell.
As he approached the door that led to the stairwell, he was hit with a crippling odor. At first, he thought a whale had died in there. He carefully cracked open the door, but instead of a set of stairs, he saw a strikingly familiar face. It shared a similar appearance to digital media student Michael Howard, but something felt off. Its eyes were sunken in, and its skin was flaked and dirtied. The nose seemed to be breaking off the face in fragments, like an apple crumbled pie. Its mouth hung open, and bugs could be seen festering in its toothless gums.
Before the cryptid could ever even grown, Covington booked it towards the elevator and initially set for the stairs. The janitor was still mopping the stairs when Covington explained to her what he saw. Curious, the janitor decided to follow Covington to the stairwell. When they both opened the door and looked in, there was no creature at all. The only thing were a set of muddy footprints and the faint smell, and I quote, dog dookie.
Multiple sources who have seen the Stairwell Stinker say it bears a similar resemblance to digital media student Michael Howard. We confronted him about this rumor, but he ignored the question and continued on about his computer specs. Moving on, the next topic is the rumored fourth floor of the ATC building. While many may not know this before construction of this building began, there was a planned fourth floor to it. Who knows what happened for sure, but there's this one theory that seems the most likely.
During construction, middle schooler Seth Johnson made the strange decision to longboard on the highest part of the almost completed ATC building.
While doing this, he ended up falling off what is currently the roof of the building. Dying from the fall, his parents were not happy about this, and after a lengthy lawsuit, the college was not really seen at fault for his actions. However, the only consequence they had to face was that they were not allowed to finish the fourth floor of the construction project.
The strange thing is, Seth Johnson has been spotted taking classes in this very building, where his demise took place in an older form. Could this be the real Seth, or some sort of cryptid that merely saw a body to possess?
On top of this, Seth had been spotted hanging around campus incredibly late at night, not really doing anything productive. There has also been this mysterious button for a fourth floor spotted in the ATC building's elevator, only after 12 a.m.
No one knows for sure, but some students have been spreading rumors that the button takes you to this strange pocket dimension that holds all spirits that have passed anywhere in the area of the ATC building. We asked students Jacob Monroe what he thought about the rumors in the ATC building, and his words, and I quote, "Even if it is a spirit possessing Seth, they're still very nice and haven't done anything to make me think less of them." Next up, we're going to talk about a pothole in the Asian market parking lot in Callaway. Now, there's no denying that the pothole exists. However, no one really knows where it began existing. It always just been kind of there, growing more and more as time passes.
According to Becca Stark, she and her friend D.T. were going to the Asian market in order to get some tasty Japanese snacks. But as they were pulling up into the parking lot, they noticed an obscenely sized pothole at the back of the lot. Along with it was an untouched mound of dirt and gravel. It seemed as if the person working on filling the hole just gave up for some reason.
They ignored it for now and continued into the store. They had spent what seemed like hours looking around and deciding what they should buy. The store was pretty much empty, besides the guy working at the register, so they took the liberty of taking their time. There was no rush for it. It was a weekend, and they both had the day off of work.
Coming out with their treasure hoard of sugary goods, they gazed at the pothole from their car. At this moment, Dee came up with a funny idea. They put their snacks away and headed towards the hole. Dee had thought it would be a funny idea if Becca took a picture of her by the pothole, and Dee was going to pose as if she was falling in.
This was all good and well until Dee actually fell into the pothole. Becca watched as her friend became swallowed by the darkness, and there was nothing she could do about it. She was frozen in fear and waited to hear Dee hit the bottom.
To Becca's surprise, however, she never heard Dee make an impact. Instead, her phone started ringing. It was Dee calling her. Becca had never answered a phone call as quickly as she did then. Dee told her that she was in the parking lot of the Ocean Oriental Market, located in downtown, and besides a couple of scrapes and bruises, she made it out fine.
Becca quickly got in her car and made the drive over to Dee. It was in the Ocean Oriental Market parking lot where Dee showed Becca the other pothole she came out of. Neither of them were keen on falling back into test it out, but they both made their way to Becca's house and tried to forget about the matter.
While they both are fine, we don't recommend going to these locations and falling into the potholes. It's unknown whether it's a guarantee each one directly leads to the other, and I don't think you'd want to get lost in a pothole. Our final story is one we've been looking forward to all day, and we hope you're just as excited as us. Introducing the Pumpkin, or the Pumpkin King, as some may know him as. Despite what some may say, he's not a creature, or a cryptid, or even a Pumpkin King.
His real name is William George Louis III, or at least that's what he told people. He was a self-appointed ruler of a small village where we know today as Panama City. The villagers, though, thought of him as an eccentric person, and it was common for him to speak in a British accent, even though he wasn't British himself. He would prance around town, asking people if they would like a tea party with him and have some crumpets.
People had no idea what crumpets were, but they were never keen on finding out. Everyone steered clear of him, and quickly he became the village laughingstock. Parents would warn their children to not approach the man, no matter how much he said he just wanted to have a jolly good time.
At the end of the day, he was a rather nice, misunderstood gentleman who just wanted some company. One particular Halloween night, he decided to dress up and entertain the children. He wore a carefully crafted wooden crown, a friendly pumpkin mask, and set out for the night. On the way, he saw himself in a reflection of water and thought, perfectly perfect. The Pumpkin, he announced himself as, and that's how the kids addressed him. Parents watched him carefully, and children laughed and danced with him.
One child in particular had accidentally thrown a ball deep within the neighboring pumpkin patch. Deciding he would prove his worth and bravery to the village, William declared to everyone that he would go into the pumpkin patch and retrieve this ball. And so he did. Time passed, and people began to grow wary of his condition.
As more and more time passed, and as the party died, their concern for the man grew stronger. The night was young, though, so they decided to wait till morning to see if he came back. He did not. They searched and searched and searched the pumpkin patch, but he was nowhere to be found. The pumpkin was gone, and the only thing left behind was his wooden crown.
The last place where the Pumpkin King was before he went missing, however, is coincidentally where the pumpkin bin is placed in the 23rd Street Walmart. Cameron James had been looking for a nice pumpkin to use in his homemade pumpkin pie recipe. Going to Walmart, he found the perfect gourd for his perfect pie. There was something about this particular pumpkin that lured him in, as if it was calling his name.
When he got home, he prepared his perfect pie using his perfect gourd. And man, was that pie perfect. So perfect, in fact, that he ate the whole thing by himself in one sitting. He roasted the perfect pumpkin seeds to perfection, and he ate those all perfectly. He even ate the perfectly perfect stem, and you aren't supposed to eat that part. All of the pumpkin parts have been consumed by Cameron in one night.
From that night forwards, he began having moments of needing to speak in a British accent. It was something that he couldn't control. More and more he would slip in and out of the accent, to the point where he didn't notice anymore. His friends, family, and other peers didn't bother to confront him, for they just thought it was a funny bit.
On one particular evening, he went to Spirit of Halloween with his friend Trey. They laughed and played around and enjoyed looking at the Halloween costumes. While he was there, he hunted for a mask that he needed for his studio production class project. It was this moment when he spotted a perfect pumpkin mask.
He was so compelled by this mask that he bought it instantly, and when he put it on, it was as if he became a different person. He spoke of having a jolly good time, having a tea party with crumpets and dancing. Trey played along and thought his accent was even better than before. He even went home with the mask still on.
Did Trey think of him as weird for wearing the mask the whole time? Yes. Did he say anything about it to him? No. Trey thought of one of his best friends, and he loved the pumpkin mask. Then he wouldn't dare say anything bad about it. When he got home, however, it was a different story. His mother thought the mask was funny at first. Then she just became annoyed because he wouldn't stop asking her if she wanted having a jolly good time. She ripped the mask off of him, and suddenly he was back to normal.
His British accent would come in and out occasionally, But on a day where he felt compelled to wear the mask, the pumpkin persona would come out in full force. Perfectly perfect, he thought to himself on those days, and perfectly perfect he was.
Is this unchecked mental illness or an active case of possession? Or could this just be a funny joke that has gone on for an incredibly uncomfortable amount of time? Whatever you say, think the answer is there's no doubt in Cameron's affliction. And just for you, we brought the perfectly perfect Pumpkin King himself here to the studio to answer our audience's submitted questions. Give it up for Cameron James, aka the Pumpkin.
So, did you ever find that ball the kid threw?
Unfortunately, no. I have no idea where it went. Not one bit.
What's your favorite kind of tea?
British kind, of course. Earl Grey, green tea, ginseng. Very marvelous.
Do you remember your last moments before you disappeared?
Nah, it's kind of a blur. Went in, found the bowl, pumpkin patch, and everything just went black.
Was there any person you possessed before Cameron?
Of course, many people. It was a dude named, I think his name was, John Cena. No one really saw me though. Yeah.
Do you like Cameron?
Yeah, he's a swole guy. Perfectly perfect, if I do say so myself. Very groovy.
What was life in the village like?
It was a jolly good time. We had crumpets all the time, tea.
Why did you leave your crown behind?
It was getting old and weary. It was kind of heavy on my head too.
And that's all for today, folks. See you next time on Cryptid TV.
Thanks for having me.